Next, we will come to the form of complex number. What is a form of complex number? We will talk about form of complex number. Any complex number can be written in the form of a plus of ib. This is the formation of a complex number. What is a? A will be a real number, I, and what will be b? B will also be a real number. B will also be a real number. But the twist in this number is that you may say that both are real numbers, so why it's written in this addition form? Now both are real numbers, but in the second part it's actually an imaginary number because I is written with B. This part is entirely real number, and this part, if you take the product form, that is I into B, as because I is an imaginary number which we have learnt previously, so IB is actually a imaginary number. So this part we will call as the real part, and if you take this part together, we will call it as only B is a real number, but if you take the whole part, we will name this as the imaginary part of the complex number. We will term this part IB as the imaginary part of the complex number. Now A is not the imaginary part. No I should be written with A, but B can be. Now let's come to an example. That is 0 a complex number? Can we call 0 as a complex number? We know that any number which can be written in this form. See, 0, can it be written as 0 plus I into 0? Can you write this as 0 plus I into 0, where 0 is a real number and this side 0 is also a real number, and which is of the form a plus of ib? You can say that this is actually of the form a plus of ib. So we can easily say that 0 is a complex number. Other common examples of complex numbers, you can take it as 2 plus 3i. You can take as 4 plus of 17i, etc. Where 2 and 3 are real numbers, 4 and 17 are real numbers, but 4 is the real part, 17i is the imaginary part. Also over here, 2 is the real part and 3i is the imaginary part, and so on. So this is the way how will you represent a complex number. Now, representation of complex number in a graphical form. How will you represent representation of a complex number? Representation of a complex number in a graph. Now, when you talk about a graph in real number system, you know how to plot graphs. And in case of complex number system, how will you find out? In this case, suppose you are trying to plot this point 2 plus of 3i. Remember one thing, in case of complex numbers, x-axis is actually the real part, real axis. Because if you write a plus ib in the form of x plus iy, so what is x? X is real, y is also real, but iy is the imaginary part. So whatever numbers are written in place of I, in place of y, that is actually termed as the imaginary part. So in this case, y part is actually the imaginary part and x part is actually the real part. So over here, if you mark this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this side, suppose we are plotting the point 2 plus of 3i. This side, if you are marking this as I, 2i, 3i, 4i, so on, if you are marking. What about 2 plus 3i? 2 plus 3i means what is the value of x? 2. And along y-axis, what is the value? 3i. So if I am taking this as 2 and this as 3, and we are trying to join them together, this point will be actually 2 plus of 3i. This will be called 2 plus of 3i. And so what will be the coordinate in this case? X is A, Y is B. So compare, what is X over here? 2. What is Y in this case? 3. So this point is actually 2, 3 and this is in the complex plane. This is in complex plane. The same point, if you try to plot in a real plane, there will be no presence of I. But as because it's a complex plane, so over here, this point is written in this form, 2 plus of 3i. Also suppose if you try to take some other examples like, now we can name the complex numbers as Z1, Z2. Z1 means suffix Z1, or you can write Z2, or you can write Z3. In this way, you can name the complex numbers. Suppose I am taking a complex number as -4. -4, is this a complex number? Yes. So -4 can be written as -4 plus 0 into I. If you try to plot this on this axis, what will be the case? This part will be x dashed. So over here, if I'm taking this as -4 means it's negative direction. -1, -2, -3, -4. This point, -4, 0. So this point it will be. So here it will be written as -4 plus 0i. And the point in this case will be -4, 0. What will be the point in this case? -4, 0. And we know that -4, 0 means the point is actually lying on the x-axis. That's why y part is 0 in this case. Also, you can take many examples, like if I'm taking it as 0 plus 5i, if I'm taking it as 4 plus of or 9 plus of 0i. In this way, many examples you can take of a complex number.